welcome to the Champs App podcast, where we help players and parents demystify the world of minor hockey development and recruiting for both girls and boys. On today's episode, we talk with Tim Crowley, who is the assistant head coach with the Cornell Big Red women's hockey team. We discuss his coaching history in D3 and the Ivy League, go into detail on the Cornell women's hockey experience, and discuss his perspective on the women's hockey recruiting process. This was a great conversation with Tim, so I hope you enjoy it. Introducing the Champs App messaging tool. Champs App messaging is the fastest, easy way to send error-free messages to coaches. The Champs App messaging tool ensures the coach's name, email, and school are correct without the need to look online and find each coach's contact information. With the Champs App messaging tool, you can choose from a variety of email templates to send. For example, one template informs coaches about upcoming events or tournaments, and another lets a coach know about new videos added to your Champs App profile. Each template automatically populates the message with the coach's name and school and inserts personal information from your Champs App profile. This way, you can be sure the emails do not have errors. Personalize each message further to make it uniquely yours. Experience the convenience of the Champs App messaging tool yourself by logging into your Champs App account. For a limited time, we are offering the Champs App messaging tool at a low introductory price for an annual subscription. As we add more amazing features to the messaging tool over the coming weeks and months, these new features will be included in your annual subscription. So get started today by logging into your Champs App account to try out the new Champs App messaging tool and easily send error-free emails to coaches. Subscribe today before the price goes up. I'm very excited to have on the podcast Tim Crowley, who is the assistant head coach with the Cornell Big Red women's hockey team. Originally from Brazier Falls, New York, Tim played college hockey at State University of New York, Brockport. After graduation, he joined the SUNY Potsdam men's team as an assistant coach while getting his master's degree in organizational leadership. He then moved to Elmira College as an assistant coach with their men's team before becoming the head coach of the Elmira women's team in 2016. He led the Soaring Eagles to the top of the Division III rankings with 127 wins over 6 seasons. And in 2022, Tim moved to the Ivy League, where he joined the staff at Cornell as an assistant coach, helping guide them to win the Ivy League title this past season. Welcome to the podcast, Tim.
Thanks, Ray. Appreciate it.
Hey, so why don't we start off like we do all of our guests, just telling us how you started playing hockey and then eventually made your way to play college hockey.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, it's from Brazier Falls, New York. So that's upstate New York in Clarkson and St. Lawrence backyard. So, hockey was something that was a popular sport growing up. Back then the winters were cold enough where you had a lot of outdoor rinks. Remember my uncle always freezing his backyard. My cousins and aunt and uncle lived right next to us. And I remember being 3 and 4 and skating out in the backyard and chasing my older cousins, begging for them to let me play. And then obviously kind of moved up from there and playing minor hockey in Brazier through that system. And then high school hockey was big back home as well. So played that and then made my way, fortunate enough to go to the Toronto area and played for Coburg for a couple of years. And then, like you mentioned, played at Brockport and, wasn't sure kind of what I wanted to do when I graduated. No offense to the people that work in the banking industry. I had a job at a bank when I was a senior in college. And after the interview, I panicked because I didn't really like it. So, went to my coach and he was like, hey, I think you might be okay with this, or, hey, I know they're looking for a position. And that was Potsdam, and went and interviewed for it. And we just talked hockey for, 6 hours. And I was kind of hooked right there, and then been fortunate enough to be at some really good institutions and being at Cornell now, and it's been great.
So I'm just curious, what was it about coaching that appealed to you as you made that transition really quickly from player to coach? Like, was there always a period while you were actually playing that you said, hey, like you were always analyzing how the game worked, and then you were saying like, hey, maybe I'd like to actually coach, so you started like paying attention to how coaching was done at that time?
No, it kind of just happened. I never really thought about it as I was playing, or even when I was in college, as my career was kind of coming to an end, because I knew, obviously, playing at the Division III level, and I knew my career was going to be over once I graduated. And I just kind of assumed I had a business degree and just thought I was going to go into that field once I graduated. And like I said, it's just kind of happened, and I'm pretty fortunate. Hockey's been such a huge part of my life. Growing up, it's brought me a lot of places. And then, since my coaching career has begun, it's brought me a lot of places too as well that I wouldn't think I'd travel to. So it's been a lot of fun, and I'm very fortunate.
Gotcha. And just one quick question on your time coaching kind of at Potsdam. You weren't very much older than the players you were coaching. So what was
No.
that dynamic like in terms of, you're just a recent grad and, you're coaching basically kids your age?
Yeah, I don't like to age myself out. I mean, that was 14, 15 years ago, but I like to think it wasn't that long ago. But for me, it was just kind of, I was able to relate to them, right? Because I was close in age. And I think for them, like they were really good about welcoming in, like a lot of those seniors and juniors were, a year younger than me or 2 years younger than me, right? So, but they were great to me, very respectful. And I was fortunate enough to have a head coach, Chris Bernard, who funny enough is from Fraser Falls as well. So he was, one of my cousin's friends. So he was one of those people I was chasing when I was a young kid, pleading with them to let me play. So had a relationship with him, and he was able to kind of bring me along and kind of show me the ropes when it comes to doing that type of stuff.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, now it makes sense. At least you had a connection to
Yeah.
help you guide you in the process. So how did you end up at Elmira College?
Yeah, so I graduated my master's my third year there at Potsdam. I kind of dragged it out just so I could still be getting my master's and be coaching and not have those college loans creep in to my salary when I was a GA. So graduated that third year, and Dean Jackson, who's actually I kind of have I joke around all the time. I hope that he gets a job with the Toronto Maple Leafs next, because it seems like I kind of once he leaves an institution, I kind of take that job next. So Dean, if you're listening, if you can get a job with the Leafs next, I would appreciate that. But yeah, he took the job as the head coach of the Elmira women's job. So the men's position opened up with Aaron Stahl, and I had a previous relationship with him because he was actually the Potsdam coach that interviewed me when I was going through that process, and then he left for Elmira, and then Chris got the Potsdam job. So I interviewed there. Loved my time there on both sides, but was with the men for 4 years there.
Gotcha. And so then obviously you mentioned, or it's apparent, then Dean went on to go coach at Cornell,
Yeah.
and opened up the spot to the head coach on the Elmira women's team. So what
Yeah.
was that like? What was that transition like, moving from coaching men to now being the head coach of a women's team?
Well, I initially it was on an interim basis. So I took over kind of a month into the season. I had started the first month with the men, and then I was actually kind of doing both up until January. So I was the head coach on the women's team, and then still helping out with Aaron up until January. And my plans were actually to go back to the men's side. I didn't have any familiarity with the women, and wasn't kind of sure what to expect. And I did it for a couple of months, and they were awesome to me, like very, and I really enjoyed it. They welcomed me right away, and we made the NCAA tournament that year, and I'd always dreamed as a player, and wasn't fortunate enough to play in the NCAA tournament. And as a college athlete or as a college coach, like that's kind of you always want to get there, right? And I was hooked right away. I really liked the game. Like I thought you had an impact on it as a coach. Like I thought you could develop kids, and I just really liked the puck possession part of it. And I really love doing it. So at the end of the year, I was like, hey, I'd love to stay, and I ended up working out, and really enjoyed my time. It's such a tradition rich program, and they're known nationally every year, and I took a lot of pride in that, and had a lot of great assistants too, like Jordan Pardowski and Mandy Montgomery. So I was really lucky to kind of be able to take over that type of program for that being my first head coaching job.
Yeah, and obviously you left them in a good place, because even this past season they made it to the finals. Unfortunately, they didn't pull it out, but obviously you stacked the recruiting pipeline for them to continue on after your success.
Yeah, I was happy to see the success they had. They had a tough ending last year, which I thought that team was really good too. But it was a lot of fun watching their last couple games, and watching their run, and getting a chance to watch the championship game with my son, as much as he'd let me watch that. In between Miss Rachel and some blippy YouTube videos, we were able to kind of watch the game.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, I mean, pretty good for you to finish over 100 games over 500 as a coaching career. That's before you moved on to Cornell. Couple of quick questions. What were the differences between coaching men and women? What did you find any differences in how the players how to coach the players?
No, I think hockey's hockey. I think at the end of the day, if they know you're invested in and, you care about their development and care about, them being part of the program, I think you're going to get the most out of kids. There's some tendencies that are a little bit different, right? Like, the one-timers or the body contact, that type of stuff. But I also think that on the women's side, like I said, it's not the dump and chase and you possess it a little bit more. I mean, there's some different quirks when it comes to the game itself, but I think when it comes to the players, at the end of the day, they're hockey players and it's a high level of hockey.
Perfect. All right. So, why don't we kind of transition then from how did you move from Elmira to Cornell? Once again, you replaced Dean Jackson, who was
Yeah,
on the staff at Cornell.
yeah,
And if I remember correctly, it kind of happened quickly over the summer because Dean didn't leave right away at the end of the season. It took him a couple of months
correct.
before he left the organization. So
Yeah, so it kind of ended up working out perfectly for me. I felt bad leaving the program in college that late, but Dean left middle of the summer, early summer, and then my wife's actually Ithaca native, and I had been living in Ithaca, commuting to Elmira back and forth for the last 7 years. So it kind of just worked out for me to make the transition, and it's been great.
perfect. So maybe just help folks understand, the differences between D3 and Ivy League. What's just help folks understand, just to get into Cornell, like what kind of GPA do folks need, and what kind of academic background do they need in order to just qualify to be recruited by Cornell?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's any institution, right? I mean, we tell kids all the time, whether we're on those panels and we're working a camp or a showcase or anybody asks us, like just enabling yourself to have good grades opens up so many more doors than not, right? So it's, trying to get those A's and B's in high school, not anything, less, just because for me, I think it opens up so many doors, whether it's an Ivy League or a really great private institution or any other program, right? So for us, I mean, we're not any different, right? We ask kids to, make sure that they take care of their grades and that enables themselves to get into, the Ivy Leagues or the high end academic institutions, right? It's, you want to be able to set yourself up, right? And make sure that you have as many doors as you have when it comes to your college process.
Gotcha. And so, but once you even get in, like, how do they like? It's a pretty rigorous curriculum that the student athletes are being challenged by. So how do they have time to both be a student athlete and a student at the same time?
Yeah, it's all time management, right? Our kids do a great job. I mean, it's incredible to me just being here for a year and a half. Seeing what they're able to do, time management wise, and the classes that they're going, and then once they graduate, I was blown away last summer. When Doug told me what our kids were doing too. So those two parts, but I think for me, it's more than anything, it's the time management part and understanding like, hey, I gotta, do this, this and that, and then I gotta practice and I got workout. I mean, it's difficult, right? Like, going to college and playing sport is tough. You need to understand your time management, responsibilities. But I think our kids do a tremendous job taking care of both.
Okay, and maybe you can just give a couple examples of those activities that your students were doing during the summer or after they graduated.
Yeah, I mean, we've had kids intern with, National Hockey League teams that, they're in our ILR school and, they're interning with a team, so I think that stuff's pretty cool. I mean, just our alumni network and, or whether they're working in the city, working on the finance side of things. I just think it's pretty incredible. I had to, when they came back, I was like, you guys are doing what? I was like, that's unbelievable. So, for me, it's like I said, it's just pretty incredible what our kids are doing, during the summers. And then once they graduate Cornell, it's pretty crazy.
Gotcha. Now, part of that it also relates to the return on investment of going and getting an Ivy
Yeah.
League education. So, on average, roughly speaking, a 4-year college degree from an Ivy League school is about $250,000, $250,000. So when you talk to, potential recruits, how do you talk to them about, such a big investment as compared to other schools where not only do they have like high-end schools, not only do they have athletic scholarships, but they also have, facilities which are, almost at the pro level.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, like, you touch base on facilities. I mean, I'm a little bit biased, but I think Lina is one of the coolest environments in college hockey. When you look at our fan support, I mean, this past year, I think we were fourth in the country or fifth. I'd have to look at that stuff again, but I think our kids get a really great environment. It's a hockey school, right? Our men's team obviously packs the place too. So again, a little bit biased, but I'm partial to Lina. I think it's got a lot of cool history to it. And when you see all the banners up top, I think it's a tough place to play too. But you kind of touch based on it, right? Return on investment. Everybody's a little bit different, in regards of what that investment is. But, at the end of the day, I think you're getting a degree and you have the alumni network as well for the sport once you want to move on, after your hockey career. And again, we're fortunate enough to have some kids that will still have a career after Cornell too. And, I think that's another great part of our program. But, I think it's, me being a parent now, I see it, I understand it. If my son's fortunate enough to, knock on wood, to do that type of stuff, I certainly understand the return on investment and getting an Ivy League degree. I think it's incredible.
Perfect. All right. Well, let's get into like kind of Cornell specific stuff. So there's about 15,000 students, at least at the
Yep.
undergrad level, which is a pretty big school. You're located in Ithaca, New York, along the Finger Lakes, which is kind of pretty remote. It takes takes a little while to get there, depending on where you're flying into. But maybe just talk about the campus and just kind of the training facilities for the hockey team.
Yeah, so campus, like you touched base on, it's 15,000 kids. It's one of the bigger Ivy Leagues when you look at the enrollment numbers. I'm a big believer. Like I come from, like you said, Elmira College and Brazier Falls too. So Elmira had 1,100 kids, and my hometown has 1,000 people. So I like small. I don't feel overwhelmed here at all. You can kind of make Cornell what you want. Like if you want it to be that bigger type environment, you can. If you want it to be more of a smaller type environment, I think you're capable of doing that too. And Ithaca is a beautiful area. Like I said, I've been living here for quite some time now, and it's surrounded, like you said, by the Finger Lakes. So, I'm a little partial again, but I think there's some really nice drives around the area. And training facility wise, we do have our own weight room underneath the rink. So our kids are able to get in there anytime they want. And then we have Friedman as well. They work out with our strength and conditioning coach. And like I said, when it comes to the rink, we have Lina. Again, I know I said it earlier, but I think it's one of the better rinks in college hockey.
Perfect. All right. And the alumni you talk about, at least from a hockey perspective, are pretty impressive. You had several of your former players, and even one of your current players or most recent players, playing at the World Championships that just wrapped up. Several for
Yeah.
Canada, I believe one for the United States, and include Brianne Jenner, and then plus you've had like Rebecca Johnson, previous guest, Alyssa Gagliardi, Laura Fortino. So maybe just talk about why it's been such a factory of high-end hockey players for the national programs.
Yeah, I think, for before me, I mean, it's recruiting and, doing a great job with development. And, Doug and Edith have done an unbelievable job. And, Doug is big on development here and bringing kids along. And obviously we've had some high end kids here as well, but I think they also get better. And, he's a big part of that. He's up in the morning, up much earlier than I am. And if I am up early, it's with my son Cooper, but, he's up early doing skill stuff with the kids, and Edith will do it as well. And I think that's a big part of why kids get better here. And I just think for us it's targeting those kids. And I wasn't fortunate enough to be here when a lot of those people that you mentioned were here, but I've heard just how great of hockey players they were. And they're a big part of our Cornell hockey history.
Gotcha. All right. So maybe just talk a little bit more about Coach, which would be Doug Dara and
Yeah.
Edith and yourself, and how you divide responsibilities amongst the coaching staff.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously Doug is the head coach here, so he's in charge of all the operations, and he's big on skill development, like I said, and he'll do some other parts of our program, whether it's the systems and the video breakdown. He's really thorough when it comes to that type of stuff, and always has our kids prepared. And I thought when I was at Elmira that I was doing some good video stuff when it came to getting our kids prepared. And when I was here for about a month, I was like, geez, I wasn't even close to scratching the surface to what Doug does. And then he does a great job with that stuff. And then Edith does the decor and the goalies. And if you look at the goalies that have kind of come through our program, it just goes to show the job that she's done with those kids too as well, and our decor as well. And then I'm fortunate enough to be in charge of the forwards, and then I'll do one of the power plays, and then Doug will do the other power play.
Gotcha. All right. So as it relates to your season, Ivy League plays less games than most of the other teams, and you also play in the ECAC conference. So not only are you battling the other Ivy League teams, but you got six other teams that you're competing against just for a playoff spot. Maybe just talk about the level of competition in the ECAC and the Ivy League.
Yeah, I think it's pretty incredible. If you look at the amount of teams that made the NCAA tournament from our league this year, and then obviously had QPAC right there as well, that unfortunately didn't make it. But I think when it comes to our league, it's one of the better leagues in the country, and there's no easy weekend. Whether you're playing the top of the league or the bottom of the league, when it comes to the standings, if you're not ready to play, then you're going to be in trouble. And that's one of the biggest things that I love about being here. It's every night you're in for it, and if you're not ready to go, then you're going to be in trouble. And I think that's what is really at least for me personally, is one of the funnest parts about being here. Just coming to the rink or being on the bus and just knowing like, hey, we better play well tonight, or we're going to have some issues.
Yeah, and incredibly, you guys, finished sixth overall, roughly speaking, in the rankings. You won the overall Ivy League title for the 16th time, and one of the key components to your team's success was Izzy Daniel, who won the
Yeah.
Patty Kaz Award, and she was a forward. So obviously, you coached her. Maybe you can tell us what made her such a great player this past season, and how did you help her succeed?
Oh, I don't know if I had a lot to do with that. And it's more just trying to get out of the way as much as I could. Izzy's unbelievable. She's somebody that's gotten better every year here. If you look at her production from her freshman year to her senior year, she's kind of every year she's taken a step in the right direction. And she's just so smart. She's able to play, slowed it down. If she wants to slow the game down, she can do that. If she wants to speed it up, she can do that. She penalty kills for us. She's on the power play. She does everything. She's just such a key cog of our offense. And then on top of that, she was our captain for the last couple of years, and just took a lot of pride in leaving our program in great shape. And for me personally, you want a locker room full of those kids. So I can't speak highly enough about her. She's incredibly deserving of everything that she got this year, and I'm really happy for her, and I know she's gonna, she's obviously not done yet, and I think she's gonna have a great professional career as well, just because she loves the game so much, and she's willing to put in the work, and she's just a student of the game. Like, she's a really smart hockey player.
A couple more questions about Izzy. So first, because you have a shorter schedule, do you think it's more challenging for an Ivy League player to win the Patty Caz? You have less games to do it, and probably you're not playing the WCHA team, so it's even more challenging to kind of get as recognized.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think we start a little bit later, right? And we play less games. So if you look at her point production compared to some of the other kids, but points per game, she was right up there. So I think for us, I mean, definitely. But we were fortunate enough this year for her to get that award. But I think, yeah, a little bit. But I think at the end of the day, I think everybody understands the landscape too as well, and that we play a little bit fewer games.
Gotcha. And if you were to tell a young hockey player today, give them some advice based on your experience of working with Izzy, what are some of the traits that Izzy has that you would tell players that, hey, if you really want to be successful, here are some things that Izzy does that you should do?
I think first and foremost, like she can skate, right? Like skating's such a premium when it comes to the college game and the game in general now. And she's also, she watches hockey, right? Like nowadays, like you ask kids, like, hey, did you watch the game? They're like, no, I didn't, like that type of stuff. So I think for me, like Izzy's, she just loves hockey. She, watches hockey majority of the nights, and just her pace and how smart she is as a hockey player. But um, just I think for me too, like just continue to develop, right? If you look at Izzy, like she got better every year, and she got rewarded because of that.
Perfect. All right. So, kind of going to start transitioning now more into the recruiting side of things, and it kind of relates to that is, um, you know, uh, Cornell has continually been in the top 10 over the last several years. And but yet, the WCHA tends to have two, if not three, of the teams in the Frozen Four. I'm wondering, like, how hard is it to compete from a recruiting perspective with the WCHA, and what sets Cornell apart, because you're still able to get a whole bunch of national under 18 players from both Canada and the US.
I think it's for us, it's just targeting kids that we think, are a good fit for Cornell. I mean, every kid's different. Sometimes we get into those battles and it doesn't end up working out. And other times, we get in those battles and they end up committing to us. I think it's just more than anything, just like any other program, right? Like, what type of kids are a fit for you. And you want to do your homework on those type of kids throughout the year before you make those June 15th calls. And like, hey, this kid's, looking Ivy and we think she'd be a fit, that type of stuff. So it's, more than anything, it's just trying to do the legwork before those June 15th calls, and understanding what kids are fit, what kids aren't a fit, and, trying to make sure that we get the best, class for us in our program.
Gotcha. And related to that, transfer portal is just has a huge amount of activity these days. And I'm wondering what role the transfer portal plays for Cornell, because basically almost no players can transfer into Cornell, but players can transfer out of Cornell, just based on how the Ivy League works with the academic side of things. Maybe just explain, folks, and give your perspective on the transfer portal from a Cornell perspective.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the fifth year stuff, right? Like we can't get in any of those kids that want to be grad players. It's the last year of it coming up next year. So I'm interested how it'll change for a little bit. I mean, it is what it is with the portal. I think some people have some very strong opinions. Some people are okay with it. Um, I'm kind of in the middle on that. I don't think I really have an opinion either way on it. I think, for those kids that, didn't get that year because of COVID, I think it's great for them to have another year of college hockey. Just unfortunately with us, with the rules and the Ivy rules, with trying to get in that fifth year kid, we just can't do it here. So, excuse me, but I don't really have any strong opinions on the portal. And like I said, I know some people do and some people don't.
Perfect. Okay. And currently you had, this past season, you had 27 players on your roster. Depending on how many players return of your seniors for the fifth year versus leaving, you're going to have probably 27 or 28 players again on your roster. But you typically can only dress 20 or 21 players. How do you manage the roster during the season? And how does that affect your recruiting, just knowing that you're going to be having some healthy scratches every game?
Yeah, so it's last year about that stuff for us. So we kind of have our COVID class, and then so we have two classes kind of merged into one, just because of COVID. So we'll have 12 seniors this year, and then after that, we'll have a much smaller roster. So we'll have one more year of that. But I think right now, I think we're at not sure quite sure what our numbers is, but I think we're in around what you mentioned. So we'll have one more year of that. And then after that, we'll have a little bit of a smaller roster size. But I think at the end of the day, like I said, if you have the bigger roster, as long as you're putting in the work and showing kids you care and, taking pride in their development, I think your locker room will be okay.
Gotcha. Okay. Now I'm going to just kind of go back into a little bit of your coaching history, and want you to compare, your pitch to prospective student athletes for D3 players versus an Ivy League D1 school.
Yeah.
So how would you sell people on playing at D3 at Elmira? And then, how is that different when you want to pitch someone to come to Cornell?
It's not a whole lot different, right? Because Elmira was one of the better programs in D3, so you're pitching a great hockey experience with a good education. It was a private school education, and that was the big thing that we were selling kids. Like, hey, you're going to play in a great environment, and then you're going to get a good degree as well. And then at Cornell, obviously, the degree's an Ivy League education, so that's a little bit different. But at the same time, you're still getting a great, you're going to be set up for life. You're getting a great education that's going to open a lot of doors with you with our alumni network and everything that comes with it. And then on top of that, you're playing at a program that develops national team players and now PWHL players. So, if you want to play at, a program that develops kids and, NCAA tournaments and everything that comes with that, like, we want kids that want to be the best of the best and, that take pride in that. At the same time, they want to get a high end education.
Gotcha. All right. So, given the other two coaches' background of Doug and Edith, I noticed you have a disproportionate number of Canadians on your team. So, does it help to be Canadian to come and play at Cornell?
I just think that's how the roster's kind of panned out. Like if you look at our recruits for the next couple of years, I think it's actually more Americans. So I just think it depends year to year, kind of, how that stuff goes.
Okay. But related to that is of your incoming recruits, I noticed that 7 out of 8 at least made it to the under 18 national camp. So obviously you're going after the top players in North America. Does anyone have a chance if they didn't make the under 18 team?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's not like the end all be all for us. It's just, again, we've been fortunate enough for those kids to be interested in us and it worked out. But if you look at somebody like Izzy, right, she didn't play on those teams. So it doesn't really matter for us when it comes to that type of stuff. Like like I said, we want kids that are great fits for Cornell.
Perfect. All right. So now we're getting into recruiting season. I know it's we're getting close to the dead period, but you are going to be going out to showcases because I know I've seen you out
Yeah.
at multiple events. What is it that you're looking for when you go to these spring and summer events when you're scouting players?
Oh, that's a loaded question. For us, like I said, it's just kids that we think will be a good fit for us that want to play with pace and that we think they're going to be good college players or that we think will develop every year. Like, it's not like we're looking for, hey, we're graduating, Izzy Daniels, so we need to bring in a kid like Izzy. It's more so kids that, jump off the page and, think that, well, they'll be a good fit for Cornell. And, those are kids that we'll try to target. And, like you said, it will be a busy summer for sure, but like any other summer, but we're just looking for kids that I think are a good fit for us that can play at our pace and play with some speed.
I love that expression, jump off the page.
Yeah.
That's a great way to codify, what a lot of coaches are looking for. I'm not sure if Doug was a goalie or not, but I'm just wondering how does your coaching staff evaluate goalies if none of you actually play goalie?
Well, Edith did at Elmira actually.
Oh, okay. There we go. I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
so like same thing. Like I get right out of the way on that stuff. I'll tell her like, hey, I think maybe this kid's good, but at this end of the day, she's been the one that's kind of developed those kids. And like I said, if you look back at our history of goaltenders, she's a big part of that.
Gotcha. And how far back do you start tracking players? Right. So right now we're coming up on the 2026 high school
Yeah.
graduation year. Are you looking at 27s, 28s, and 29s at this point, or are you really just focused on the incoming, recruiting class or the upcoming recruiting class?
Yeah, a little bit of everything. Like where I was at nationals this past couple weeks ago and was watching U14. So you got 28s and 29s and even some 27s in there that are playing that. So it's kind of a mixed bag of everything. And then once, and then also watching 26s as well. So I think you're, at least me personally, watching everything and, hey, these are kids that we should track. And then also, watching the 26s and, just making sure that we have the right list when it comes to June 15th.
Gotcha. And what advice do you have for players and parents who may not be playing for the top teams in their country? So, maybe they're not playing in Southern Ontario or they're
Yeah.
not playing in, Minnesota high school hockey, but they're in more, remote areas like Saskatoon or, New Hampshire. What do you How do you find those players?
Oh, I think, I mean, I would say, don't get frustrated, just continue to develop, right? Like, I think if the kid wants to play college hockey, there's, whether it's at the D1 or D3 level, there's a lot of opportunity, and, just continue to develop. Like, some kids are late bloomers. Like, some kids might, you know, commit to a D1 institution later on in their junior club days. Or other kids are, kids that, like I said, pop off the page right away, and they're going to commit right away on June 15th, or, in the summer of their, going into junior year. So I think every kid's a little bit different, and, don't get frustrated. I think continue to develop, and, continue to knock down those doors. And like I said, it's, being good academically, and, being good athletically, and, there's a home for everybody when it comes to that type of stuff. And if you do end up D3, it's not the worst thing in the world either. Like, there's good hockey there. There's some good teams, and, there's some good people in that level too.
Perfect. And once again, we're in April, and parents and players are trying to plan out their spring and summer beyond their national district and national camps. Just
Yeah.
wondering what advice you have in terms of events so that they can go get seen. So by the Cornells, by the other Ivy Leagues and other top teams, what kind of guidance do you give on, the number of events and the type of events to go to? Obviously, everyone says don't go to every event. Trust me, they'll find you. But
Yeah.
what do you recommend?
Well, that's another loaded question. I would say do your homework, and pick a couple, and go to those that are best fit for you. I think, nowadays, like, if you wanted to, you could do a camp every weekend. You could find a camp for your kid, or for them to do every weekend. And I think it's I think more than anything, just trying to find a couple camps that are a great fit for you, and then that, do your homework, and then, enjoy your summer too, and put in the work, when it comes to the off ice stuff. But I think nowadays, like, kids are playing, 70 to 80 games during the year, and then they're playing a ton of camps throughout the summer, right? I think trying to have a little bit more load management when it comes to that type of stuff. But I do understand the camp portion. That's a big part of our recruiting schedule. So you get that FOMO sometimes of being like, if I'm not going to this camp, then so and so won't see me. So I think just trying to, do your homework, and pick a couple camps that you think are a good fit for your daughter or yourself, and then go from there.
Gotcha. And how many events do you plan on attending and scouting over the next 3 or 4 months?
We haven't had that discussion yet. So trying to, again, having that balance, right? I just got on my soapbox, and told the kids to have a balance. So, trying to have a balance for us as a staff too, as well.
Perfect. All right. And I know on your website it says that Cornell is going to have a camp this summer, but I wasn't able to access the actual information for, I think the actual page may not be ready yet. So maybe what you can just share with folks what the plan is for a Cornell camp this summer.
Yeah, we'll do two camps. I think the first one is the 26th of June, and I want to say the second one is August 28th. But we just try to give kids an idea of what it's like to have a day in the life of a Cornell hockey player, excluding the academic part. So, what a practice would look like, what a speed session would look like, and then we'll have a tour in between as well. So it's not an overly taxing day, but just trying to give them the best idea of what it is to go here, and be a part of a practice that we run, or, like I said, a speed session, that type of stuff.
And do you know if Cornell's ever recruited a player that's attended one of these camps?
I believe, yeah, we have some kids that are actually committed now that have gone to our camps. Yep.
All right, good. Well, so now they know they got a chance. So
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
All right, Tim. I really want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was great hearing about your coaching journey and following Dean Jackson wherever he goes. Hopefully, he gets a job in the NHL,
Yeah.
like you said, so
Yeah.
that he can follow you. You can follow him. And it was great learning about the Ivy League and your perspective on the ROI, and obviously all the detail about the Cornell women's team, and why you continually have great success over multiple years. So thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate having me on, and I really enjoyed it.
I really want to thank Tim for coming on the podcast. It is always great to talk about the Ivy League and what that experience is like. Obviously, Cornell is a great school to play hockey, and now we understand why they are continually ranked in the top 10 in the country. You can connect with Tim on the Cornell Women's Hockey website or via his Champs app profile. Links to both are in the show notes, and you can also easily send Tim an email using the new Champs app messaging tool.